Red Sun first because my
Okay.
screen is still shared. So
Okay.
I'm going to let it play here in the background while we talk. So, Eric, did you get a chance to see the trailer for Red Sun?
I've not. So this will be my first time seeing it.
This is a DC animated film, and it's an adaptation of the Red Sun graphic novel or a miniseries that came out several years ago. The basic tenor of this story is that Kal-El, instead of crash landing in basically a farm field in Kansas and found by an elderly American couple, instead he actually crashes into communist Russia, and he is basically a hero of Russia. It's a Russian hero, and it changes the entire tenor. It's very much an Elseworlds kind of story. Those people who've been watching a lot of the CW shows, whether they watch the CW event or the Elseworlds event from last year, or they're watching the Crisis event right now. This is kind of this idea on another Earth. This is another way that the characters evolve differently from what we expected. I really like the visual style of this. This is very much in more keeping with the look and the style and the approach of the graphic novel series, as opposed to like giving us like overly redone or redesigned versions like what they've been doing with like Throne of Atlantis and Batman versus Robin and some of the other stuff. That stuff's very much the New 52 canon, and it's fine. It's enjoyable, but I really, really like it when they do stuff like this and they actually adapt these classic stories, whether we're talking about Gotham by Gaslight, whether we're talking about New Frontier, or we're talking about Dark Knight or Batman Year One. Batman Year One and Dark Knight are both excellent, and I highly recommend if people haven't seen those to go back and watch those animated features. And a lot of these animated features sometimes, segueing not exactly into our streaming wars segment, but a lot of times this is the content that eventually winds up on the DC Universe service. But this is a fun story. The animation on this looks really good. I'm looking forward to this one. This one looks really fun, which is why I wanted to take some time and actually talk about it and spotlight it, because this looks like a worthwhile production that I think people should be aware of and be interested in checking out. It's a different take on Superman, but I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Just watching the trailer go by as you were talking, I love the visual style. It looks great. It really looks really good. It's definitely the kind of animation style that I personally am into. It reminds me a lot of the Bruce Timm style, and I really like it. It looks really good.
I like how they do like the old newsreel type footage here in this sequence. That's really fun. And then this guy represents the Luthor company, and they're basically in charge of coming up with a defense for this Superman. So, but no, it looks really good. I'm looking forward to this one. I think this one will be a lot of fun. It's been a while since I've been really super excited for one of these. The last one was Gotham by Gaslight, which is a bit of a departure from the original story, but I still quite enjoyed it. But this is one where when Superman and Batman fight each other, you're very clearly rooting for one over the other for very specific reasons. It's not like, you're like, why are they fighting? And this one, it makes total sense why they're fighting.
Right. So, yeah. I'm not a fan of Batman versus Superman, but I actually I remember when this came out, when the comic came out, and I was very interested in getting it, but I ultimately didn't. I don't know, and I don't remember why. But I remember leafing through the books and just being like, "This looks really cool. This is really interesting." I think maybe I was just broke at the time or something like that. But I always thought that this was kind of one of those really fascinating Elseworlds kind of ideas. And I'm not a huge Elseworlds kind of guy, but I always thought that this was a fascinating idea. So, yeah, I think the like a lot of DC stuff, the cartoon version might be for me. So.
Well, and this is the kind of stuff. I mean, if at Warner's and DC, they feel like the classic versions of the heroes have been played out and they're not sure what to do with them, one-off films like the quality of what they did with Joker and actually taking material like this and actually making a film out of it, I think this is the way they should really go. because these are really interesting takes. They're very well thought of and beloved stories among the fans, but they're very interesting too. It's a very different take and approach on Superman. And it's just one of those things that's like, if we're going to deviate from what we're familiar with, why don't we walk into this territory, and adapt some of these really great stories, instead of like trying to adapt Dark Knight Returns without adapting Dark Knight Returns. Why not just adapt Dark Knight Returns?
Yeah.
Don't walk around it and try to pretend it's something else. Just do it. You want to do a new Batman film? Well, let's just do Batman Beyond. Just do a totally new radical take on Batman. But there's great source material out there they could pull from. But cobbling together, taking two stories that have nothing to do with each other, or creating a random time periods when you're talking about. And I don't hate Batman v Superman, but it's one of those things. It's like when you take Dark Knight Returns, which is very much a Reagan 80s story, and then you take the death of Superman, which is sort of like in the wake of Image Comics and the turmoil of the 90s, and you take those two storylines and try to smash them together into a film, it's going to be uneven. You're taking two different things that were reflecting two different periods of time in terms of comics, what was going on in the comics and the characters, and it doesn't work, So as they move forward, if they're looking at Joker and they're trying to figure out what to do, I think Joker kind of shows there's a way forward by taking really great material like this and maybe adapting it into a film and giving it the A-picture treatment. And this is the way I think to go. Taking these stories like Red Sun, like Gotham by Gaslight, like Dark Knight Returns, and actually just adapting them and making them into great standalone movies.
Yeah, I think there's something to that. I mean, obviously somebody there thinks the same, especially with the animated division. It seems like they've done a lot of that. To varying degrees of success, I would say. Like I followed the Death of Superman comics, and I was a little disappointed in the animated film. So,
well, and it's the same thing. The Death of Superman storyline has never really been faithfully, properly done. I watched the new one, and the new one's a little bit closer, but it's like it's New 52 continuity. Everything's been redesigned. The characters that you expect to play a role. Like, Death of Superman is so completely different when your Justice League is Guy Gardner and Booster Gold and Maxima, and that creates a different dynamic. And the diehard fans who want to see that, those are the characters we want to see in that story. I don't want to see the New 52 Justice League and see them fighting Doomsday. It's like, well, that's not what happened. Doomsday walked through the current version of the Justice League and, well, I'm going to curse, damn near killed a lot of those characters. And that was a big shocking thing,
Right.
And seeing these other characters that people are not as familiar with, Guy Gardner, whether they give him the green ring or the accordion yellow ring. I mean, let's, what I mean? Like, seriously, like, why don't we, because I look at Dark Knight Returns and that adaptation is so well done. And then I turn around and I look at Batman Year One. Batman Year One is so faithfully adapted. Those are both really good. Under the Red Hood is so well done. And Under the Red Hood is probably the best, I think, of the DC animated films they've ever done. Under the Red Hood is great. New Frontier is really great, and it captures the feel and the style of Darwin Cook and that sort of that period in which he was trying to capture that 1960s era of Americana. It's so great, and that's the thing. It's like I look at this and I see the same kind of thing, and that's what I want to see more of. And with that the Death of Superman, when they tried to do a weird cobbled together New 52 continuity and tie it into all their recent stuff, whether it's the Justice League War, whether it's Throne of Atlantis, Batman versus Robin, all these New 52 continuity animated films. It's like, okay. But I think the reason it leaves a lot of people cold, and it left me cold, is because we're not really capturing, the actual original source material. It doesn't look like it was designed by, Dan Jurgens and oh darn it, Doug Hazelwood and a lot of that creative team. Well, Doug Hazelwood was inker. It doesn't look like it was designed by. Darn it, I can't remember his name. I'm blanking on all the names of all the creative talent that worked on the Death of Superman, because it was three or four different Superman teams that worked on that series. But it doesn't have that visual style, and it's not the same characters, and it's a slightly changed story, and it just kind of leaves me cold. I mean, they mess with the story with Gotham by Gaslight, but at least it looks kind of right, Flashpoint, I worked on Flashpoint. I hated the fact that they felt like they needed to redesign everything from the Wonder Woman series I worked on, which still irks me to no end. But beyond that, even Flashpoint, I thought was a little bit better treatment of that material than what they did with this last Death of Superman animated film. I could go on about this stuff forever. We should stop talking about it. So I just want to recommend. I think Red Sun looks pretty good. If you're interested in it, or if you haven't heard about it, get a chance, watch the trailer, check it out. I think this one might be a good one.
Yeah, I think it looks really good.